Here's a question I get all the time. If I had to pick only one ETF, which one would I choose? You guys know me, I'm the Canadian in a t-shirt, and I'm a money nerd. I love doing research and optimizing and customizing my portfolio. That's why I invest across many stocks and ETFs, but that takes time and effort. It's not for everyone. Before we go any further, I want to say a huge thank you to BMO ETFs for sponsoring this video. Remember, this is not investment, tax, or legal advice. It's important to do your own research. Now, to answer that question, in my case, if I wanted to keep it simple and I had to pick just one, it would be ZEQT, the BMO All Equity ETF. We call that an asset allocation ETF. With this one single ETF, I'll have all my bases covered with just one fund that invests in the Canadian market, the US market, and international markets. And the best part, it's in Canadian dollars. I've been investing with BMO ETFs for a decade, right from the beginning. And yes, I do own a sizable position of ZEQT, in addition to the underlying funds within it. That's an important point. Let's start with that. ZEQT is an ETF that contains other ETFs. In fact, it contains 6 ETFs, all bundled together. That's why it's also known as an all-in-one ETF. If you're looking for equity in your portfolio, it's one fund that covers everything. All in one single ETF. It's a one-stop shop. Instead of nitpicking and comparing this fund versus that fund, I just buy ZEQT to cover all my bases. And again, I'm a money nerd. Personally, I love the nitpicking and the diving deep into the research and choosing individual stocks. But I have to admit, it is stressful and it takes a lot of time. It's not for everyone. Instead, with an all-in-one ETF, I get pure simplicity. With ZEQT, I get to be passive and hands-off with my investing. No exaggeration. I could just buy ZEQT every month and I would have a quality, diversified portfolio. My strategy is just buying the fund and holding it for long-term growth. I don't need to make any decisions or worry about overlap between my holdings. Everything is taken care of. With this simplicity, it's easy to turn investing into a habit. If I were a beginner learning to invest for the first time, this would be my starter pack. And it's not just for beginners, it's great for all investors focused on growth over a long time horizon, even veterans like me, and that's because of the built-in diversification. Like I said before, ZEQT just contains 6 underlying ETFs. Each of them targets a different corner of the market. That's how we get global exposure. Let's start with the biggest slice, the US market. About 45% of the fund is ZSP, the BMO S&P 500 Index ETF. I've already covered ZSP and the other underlying funds in detail in this video right here. Essentially, this ETF invests in the 500 largest companies in the United States, and it's all in Canadian dollars, so no currency conversion required. So for the US, the S&P 500 gets 45% of the fund. The next biggest chunk is the Canadian market with 25%. That's ZCN, the BMO S&P TSX Capped Composite Index ETF, which tracks the 223 largest Canadian companies on the TSX exchange. Canada? Check. US? Check. Now we need international exposure, and that's about 27% of the fund. The foreign sector is actually divided into 2 ETFs, ZEA, the BMO MSCI EAFE Index ETF, and ZEM, BMO MSCI Emerging Markets Index ETF. ZEA covers the more developed economies, namely Japan, Germany, France, Australia, and this makes up 18% of the fund. ZEM, on the other hand, tracks the emerging markets. These are developing economies, which could have higher risk, but higher rewards in the long term. Think of countries like China, Taiwan, and India. ZEM makes up 9% of the total fund. Adding up the numbers, we still have about 4% left. What's missing? We already have global exposure, foreign markets, emerging markets, Canada, and US, but so far that's focusing on the big players, the large cap companies that are worth billions or even trillions. I also want a little exposure to the small cap and mid cap companies that have room to grow. That's one of the things I really like about ZEQT. They reserve about 4% to these smaller cap companies, and that's what I meant when I said total diversification. We're spread out geographically, but we're also diversified by market capitalization. Again, all my bases are covered. There are 3 more key benefits I want to highlight. First, with ZEQT, there is no currency conversion required. Everything is in Canadian dollars, going along with the theme of simplicity. ZEQT, like all of the underlying ETFs I just mentioned, trades on the Toronto Stock Exchange, right in Canadian dollars. And you can buy ZEQT in any account type, in your TFSA, your RRSP, non-registered, it works anywhere. Number 2, we get built-in rebalancing. Market movements can impact the asset allocation of a portfolio, causing it to shift over time. Remember, this ETF is managed for you by BMO ETFs portfolio managers, so they take care of all the work. As of today, the fund has a 45% US split, 25% Canadian, and 27% foreign, and these weights can change as the market changes. What this means is you don't have to manually rebalance yourself. All that work is done for you quarterly by their auto rebalancing. That's the beauty of an all-in-one. Number 3, ZEQT has some of the lowest fees in Canada. In fact, BMO lowered their management fee down to 0.15%. I love that. You get all the benefits and simplicity for a fraction of the cost of mutual funds. That's why I love ZEQT. It's simplicity. It has global diversification plus mid caps and small caps, and everything stays in Canadian dollars. Of course, you can reproduce this fund by buying the underlying ETFs. That's what I do when I want to customize my weightings. But I like that ZEQT has a simple, hands-off, all-in-one portfolio, which I can hold for the long term. I say it's great for beginners and experts alike if you're seeking diversified all-equity exposure. Thank you again to BMO ETFs for sponsoring this video, and make sure you check out bmoetfs.com for all the details. I'll include links to everything in the description box below. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of The Canadian in a T-Shirt. Bye guys.